Okay, so man, it must have been. I think it was Monday. We talked about this. There's a rumor that they're shooting a scene at the home of Peggy Carter and Steve Rogers, and of course, we already know a lot has been out there in the news about Peggy Carter, Steve Rogers, when Steve decided to, just go live with Peggy and clap them cheeks. It seems he clapped the cheeks of the fucking multiverse as well. Caused the incursions and caused a lot of problems. So that's been a rumor that's out there, and we just found out that they're filming the scenes. They're actually beginning to film the scenes with Robert Downey Jr., with Haley Atwell, and they're filming at that place, the house where it all went down. And on over the weekend, I think, My Time to Shine came out and said that we're going to have that scene filming soon with 4 different actors. Okay. And we were trying to figure out who the actors were. You guys thought it was going to be 6 different actors, and I educated you guys. So it's like, that's not what it says. There's 4 different actors, right? And so we talked a lot about that. We came up with some cool ideas and cool different ways that the scene could go. Well, according to Daniel RPK, the scene will be Steve, Peggy, and Robert Downey Jr. Now, he didn't mention a 4th person. Okay. But that's kind of interesting. So Peggy, Steve, Robert Downey Jr., is that it? Is Downey playing both? Is he going to play Doom and Iron Man in this scene? Or is there maybe Loki in this scene? I'm not really sure. Now, one of the things we talked about before was it seems like these are stunt doubles as well. So it seems like there's going to be some action here. That's kind of interesting. If it's just those 3... it kind of seems like Peggy and Steve are probably screwed. So it could be the case that somebody else is there to help those characters. Maybe Loki. That's kind of like my pick. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Loki. Like, I'm kind of thinking like it all comes down to this. He's there to stop it all. And Loki finally gets off of his chair, shuts this shit down once and for all, and maybe even helps to send Steve and them away. But you know what? There's another thing I thought of too. So there's a scene in... See, this one kind of doesn't work, but it could be interesting. There's a scene in Secret Wars where Doctor Strange flips on Doom and scatters some of the Avengers to the wind to protect them. And even though they're together and they're homies and all that, like, Steven he has to help the Avengers. So what if it's that? Like, what if it's Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom? They roll up to this house. They're in an agreement of what it is and what it has to be. And somehow, some way, Doctor Strange has a change of heart and, like, helps Peggy and them to escape. Like, that could be what it is, which would be kind of interesting. I'm really leaning on it being Loki, though. What do you guys think? What do you think of this, and who do you think it could be in this scene here? Really interested. We had a lot of fun coming up with ideas last time. Reed and Doom racing to Steve's house, and then they enter. Steve is just clapping cheeks. Maybe Reed could be a good pick there. The trouble is, though, that Reed... So here's the thing, right? Reed doesn't feel like he belongs in that scene. Because even though it's Doctor Doom, it's really kind of Tony, as we've been talking about, right? It's really kind of Tony. Tony and Steve, that makes perfect sense. Those two, the heart of the story about them, the relationship, the fucking dialogue, my God. Like, there's a lot there. Peggy's there because of Steve, and she's like the thing that he betrayed the whole multiverse for and all that. So that kind of makes sense. I think Loki's a good pick here, because not just as the character that he was, but as the character he is. That's a good point too. Pedro finished filming already. That's actually a great point. Little heck. So probably not him, but beyond that, like, he doesn't fit thematically there. So it would be hard to have him in that scene and it to carry the same weight, unless he's just totally background, right? So if it's Loki, it feels great because, of his history with these characters, but also because he's the god of stories and he knows, like, all this shit about what it was, what happened, what's going on with all these universes, et cetera, the collapse of it all. Loki's there as a person that made the choice himself, and changed and had this whole different arc and is now the god of stories, and he's watching Steve try to become who he's supposed to be. I don't know, like, there's just something there. Like, that feels right as an ingredient. I don't think it could be Pedro. What else? Who else do you think it is? Peggy, pegging Steve? I mean, maybe they take turns, you know what I mean? Like, it's 2025. I don't know what year it is in the MCU, you know? Maybe they, they're into that sort of stuff. You know, it's their business. It's not really our business. Maybe the TVA? Strange and Clea. Strange works in the scene. Strange works in the scene better than Reed for a lot of the reasons we talked about. He knows the characters, he's been involved, all that sort of stuff, right? Will the MCU ever bring back sex appeal? I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so, man. I would really like that. I saw a photo today. I actually couldn't tell if it was AI or not, so I didn't share it. But it had like Florence Pugh, Elizabeth Olsen, and Scarlett Johansson all together. And there's just like these fucking fine-ass, foxy fucking ladies. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, the MCU has a lot of talent, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I hope so. I hope so. I hope we switcheroo. Missed your super chat. I will get the super chat in a second. Is it relevant to this conversation? Hey, Josh, back again. What if Peggy dies and that causes the Incursions to get worse? Okay, interesting. Appreciate the 5, man. What if Peggy dies and that's what causes the Incursions to get worse? I mean, maybe. The thing is, there's a lot we don't know about this scene. The thing that keeps bugging me is, like, why does Doom think that he can kill Steve and stop the Incursions? Isn't that not how time travel works? And if it is how time travel works, why is that exact moment so important? Like, there's got to be something else we're missing here, you know? Brie Larson in the Gooner Bait costume. You know what's funny about that? She did it herself. I forget what talk show host it was, but she had the twins out, man. She had the girls out. These women know what it is, too. It's just such a weird, like, I don't know how we got here. Where, like, we can't talk about this, acknowledge that we don't know what the fuck it is, but then Brie knows she needs to win a couple points back. And she, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing here? So, yes, put her in the Gooner Bait. Cham Brick says, the clap of the cheeks heard round the multiverse. Indeed, sir. Indeed. Respectfully. It doesn't make sense to me because I thought the Incursions were caused by multiversal interactions, not time travel. Yes, but isn't time travel causing the erosion of space-time? Like, it is kind of tricky. Like, I've thought about this a lot myself. If he's in 616, I don't see how that causes an incursion. If he goes back to live with Peggy in 616, because there's all these theories that, like, he was there as an old man during the funeral, helping to carry, you know, Peggy's corpse and all that. So I don't see how that causes an incursion. Do you know what I mean? I suppose if he went back in time and caused a branch that was essentially a branch of the sacred timeline, that would cause an incursion and possibly be real fucking bad, right? But I don't understand it. I don't think we've had that fully explained, and it's either going to be explained away with some bullshit, or there's something that we're missing, you know? Could the fourth actor be Kang? It's possible. It's possible. I almost feel like if Kang is in Spider-Man, if Tillman is playing Kang, then part of the calculus there is like, let's get this question answered before we get into Doomsday, because there's already enough going on in Doomsday that I don't know that they have enough time to really like wrap up the Kang stuff and fully appreciate it. So yeah. Diamond G says, where are the chairs? I don't think we're getting chairs, brother. I don't think we're getting no chairs today, bro. 2 caps in one universe, right? Yes, technically, yeah. Yeah. Each universe has its own timeline, and any changes to a timeline causes a new universe. That is the way we understand it right now, yes. But remember that after Kang, so here's something that's kind of interesting, and I don't understand exactly what it means, but I keep coming back to the character of Victor Timely. When He Who Remains was going to be destroyed, he told Ravonna to go take his notebook, which was written by Ouroboros, and drop it off on a variant of himself that was living on the 616 timeline in the 1950s. But that's wild, because we know that Kang doesn't exist until the 31st millennia. So how is there a Kang living on the sacred timeline in the 50s, known as Victor Timely, when we don't even get Kang in that timeline proper until 1,000 years into the future. So technically, there were multiple Kangs living on the sacred timeline, which probably is actually obvious when you think about it. Luca says, Josh, your theories sound thought out and awesome, but I feel like Marvel will just let us down and do some basic crap and push unpopular characters. Yeah, I can't blame you for feeling that way, but at the same time, I think the truth is Marvel has a lot of these ideas. They did fuck it up, and part of why you feel the way you feel is because they restricted things, and it made it seem like that they weren't actually tied together. So, like, for instance, all the Nexus being shit in WandaVision, Benedict Cumberbatch was supposed to be in that show. And there was going to be a much more direct through line between Stephen Strange, Wanda, magic, the multiverse, all this sort of stuff. They end up kind of removing most of it. And I think the thought process from their perspective was, we're not going to be able to figure this out. We know what it is. Let's just pull it back and keep it ambiguous. And unfortunately, after several of those, it ended up just feeling all ambiguous. It ended up just losing the feeling that it was thought out. But I would argue it is still thought out. I just think it got out of hand, and there were so many things that were setting up that they just had to like let stuff fall by the wayside. You know what I'm saying? Victor's book inspired the creation of the Loom for He Who Remains to Refer. Victor is not Kang. In a sense, you're right. In a sense, you're wrong. Because otherwise, why would he do this only after he knew he was going to die? Because remember, Miss Minutes tries to stop Loki and Sylvie one last time. And I know Kang wrote all this shit and knew it was like an eventual inevitable thing. But it appears as though even right at the end, he was technically trying to stop it, and he had a plan that he would only have to enact if he could not stop it. Does that make sense? Don't trust Miss Minutes. Yeah, I think Miss Minutes is bad news for sure. He was setting the path for him to become He Who Remains again, right? It appears so. But then it's like, okay, but why doesn't he need that in the 31st millennia? Like, why isn't it? It's not the origin that he describes of himself. So what is the deal there? Is it because the origin of himself? Like, because here's something I keep coming back to. It could be the case that the reason He Who Remains had to keep these characters around and separate them was because if he really totally recreated everything from scratch, he himself would not exist. Like, does that make sense? Like, there's potential here that Kang needed to remake using what was there, as opposed to recreating from scratch. Because if he recreates from scratch, maybe he doesn't exist. Does that make sense? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. Here's one thing that I'll say that's kind of cool about all of this, though. Michael Waldron. Guys, over the past week, I went back and watched a ton of Michael Waldron interviews. I've read a bunch of his comments, and I've read a lot of his scripts and stuff, too. I think Waldron is a brilliant guy. Waldron was thinking about all of this stuff very deeply. I mean, the reason Loki is as good as it is because of Michael Waldron. You know? He knew what he was doing, and he's super smart, dude. Like, he's just a really fucking smart writer. And it's awesome that he's involved in Doomsday. He is going to help make sense of all of this. So yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts before we end this segment here about the oh, his stuff stinks? You didn't like Loki? Peggy's death in Civil War, an absolute event that Cap was trying to prevent, or change is causing problems. Maybe they are always meant to be apart. Yeah, it's possible. I actually kind of like that. Yeah, I think that could be. Grace Randolph hates Michael Waldron for some reason. I think she hates him because of Multiverse of Madness. And look, everybody's free to have their opinion, but like, look, the thing I personally have noticed about Multiverse of Madness is it pissed off a bunch of anti-woke people, but it also pissed off a bunch of woke people, which is my favorite thing to do. I love pissing both sides off as well because I think they're both equally as stupid. But it also shows that I think maybe both sides are just wrong. And it's actually just good writing. You know, there's a tendency for a lot of these folks, whether they're on the right or whether they're on the left, to think about the optics. Right? You hear this word all the time, optics. Optics is like, how does this make me feel about real world shit? And I just think it's really silly, regardless of what side you're on, to like let that really affect your viewing of a thing. Now, to be fair, that is what it is, because you guys have vocalized and spoken about it till the fucking cows come home. You don't like it when there's some woke shit because it makes you feel things and you think about things you don't want to think about. And some of you don't like it when it's optically bad for the male gaze or feminist ideas and all this sort of stuff. It's all the same thing by a different name. It's I am taking my real world shit into this story, and if certain things happen that trigger things that make me think about the real world, then I'm going to say this movie has bad optics. And the reality is, like, a bunch of anti-woke people hated Multiverse of Madness because of Scarlet Witch and America Chavez, and then a bunch of woke people hated it because of the treatment of Scarlet Witch. I would just offer that they're both wrong as per usual. That's going to piss a lot of you off because a lot of you are those people. But that's my take. Like, I've always thought that about that film. This movie is amazing. And people that don't like the depiction of Wanda, you're wrong, bro. I mean, you're just wrong. Because it's a function of what the story needed to be. She's absolutely fucking chilling in the film, and it's incredible. Pushes the thing like with a pulse that's just magic, really. And also, if you watch the end of WandaVision, and you walked away thinking that she had character development and had learned lessons and grown as a character, I don't want you near my children, because that's not what happened. This lady was a psycho. She flips back and forth, even in the finale, between fucking over the townspeople or fucking over her kids. She's a psychopath. Okay? So people that took away from WandaVision that like Wanda was like on the right path and then Waldron totally derailed her character, holy shit, you don't know what you're talking about, in my opinion. Okay? So, yeah, that's what I say to that, you know? And again, you could totally feel the way that you feel. It's totally fine. And people have the right to enjoy entertainment the way that they want to. If optics is something you really care about, I think you're lame, but you're also valid. It's fine. Like, you can do that. Sticky Savage says 3 things causing incursions. 1, the X-Men and Fantastic Four not existing in 616. That's kind of interesting. Cap staying with Peggy. 3, Loki taking his throne. Doom is trying to fix it. So that is kind of interesting, right? Because in a sense, what you're saying is maybe the incursions were always going to happen because this is a false reality and the universe was always going to manifest chaos. Doesn't that kind of feel like what He Who Remains says? The reason he says you can't stop this is because if you kill him, then it all just goes back to the multiversal war. He wins again and resets everything again. It's like a loop, right? Well, the part of the loop is the inevitable falling apart. Part of the loop is when it inevitably all crashes and burns, when the chaos manifests and it has to get broken down, right? Yeah, that is kind of an interesting point. What if Doom was at the end of time during the first multiversal war? Possible. My money would be on Thanos, actually. My money would be on Thanos. What are your thoughts on Doom getting an Iron Man suit? Tricks Peter because he looks like Tony? Yeah, totally. Something like that could be really fun. Yeah, absolutely. Could be really fun. All right. Any other thoughts on this stuff here with Peggy Carter, Steve Rogers, or RDJ? What do you think? Any other thoughts here, guys? Let me know your thoughts.